We can also overload the function call operator. Now this must be a non-static member function. It is considered a binary operator, and the list of arguments passed in is considered the second operand. At the bottom of the slide I have a quick example of a function call operator declaration. The return type is going to depend on what you want to do, but then we have operator, the parentheses, and then again parentheses, followed by the formal parameter list. A quick example in Visual Studio using the entity class again. In the private section you can see we have two members, member 1 and member 2. Again, this is just a high level example. And then in the public section we have a constructor which is going to allow you to initialize an object. Alright, initialize those members, member 1 and member 2, by passing in one or two arguments. I also have this toString function which is simply going to print out the state of the object, so member 1 and member 2. And then here is where we overload the operator. For this example, I'm basically going to return a reference to the calling object by returning this. Alright, it's going to return a reference to an entity. But this is really going to depend on what you want to do. Here we have operator, the parentheses, and then we do parentheses again. So the syntax is a bit weird because you have two sets of parentheses. Then you have the second operand basically, which is this list of parameters. And for this example, we are going to overload this operator to give us a quick way of setting all of our members, so we don't have to use individual setters. As you can see right here, I set member 1 to member 1 parameter, member 2 to member 2 parameter. Again, this is going to depend on what you want to do. Let's say you have a vector 2D or a vector 3D, and you want to do an offset for your character or some object in your game world. Then you can overload the function call operator to maybe apply an offset as opposed to what we are doing here. And in that case, you'll do plus equals. So the plus and equal symbol, alright, the addition and assignment operator, and in that way you can add an offset to the existing position of your player in the game world, for example. But again, here, just keeping it simple, all we are going to do is we are going to change the members. So that is what we are going to use this operator, the function call operator, for. I mentioned we have the toString as well. Okay, in main I do entity1, and then I do entity1.toString. That should print out 1 and 1 for each member. This is how we use that overloaded function call operator. This might look like a function call, but we're actually applying that function call operator to an instance of entity now, this entity1 object, and as opposed to the name of a function as we are familiar with. If you're concerned that this is somehow going to modify how functions are called or how function calls are going to work, again, this does not affect that. This is simply applied to an instance of your user-defined type. And based on the implementation or definition for the current example, this right here is going to set member 1 to 4 and member 2 to 5. And then here we print it out again. I'll build around this and we'll get member 1 is 1, member 2 is 1. That is for the initial toString member function call. And for the second call we get member 1 is 4 and member 2 is 5, as we would expect. I'll pass into arguments now. Build a run, and that initial toString member function call will print out 55 for member 1 and member 2, and the second call will print out 4 and 5 again. This does not affect how you construct your objects or your calls to your member functions or something like that. Alright, that is just an additional option that you have. Entity 1 is basically going to be the calling object, so it's going to be the left-hand operand. And then instead of having an operator such as addition or assignment or something like that, as we are used to, and then having a right-hand operand, we are going to pass in these arguments. So it's similar to overloading the subscript operator, but in this case we can have a list. So we can pass in more than one argument right here. And this is also something that you can use maybe if you have a multi-dimensional array in the definition of your class. And with this you can use the two arguments that you pass into to specify the index. Okay, so at first overloading these operators might seem intimidating or confusing, but hopefully through these simple examples you've seen that it's really not that difficult.